In a world where pain was her only inheritance, she built her own throne. They mocked her, betrayed her, left her to crumble beneath the Lego sun. But from the ashes of poverty, Beatrice rose, fierce, unstoppable, and crowned by destiny itself. Her enemies built walls, but she built empires. Take a seat and watch closely, because this isn't just another story. It's the tale of a woman who turned heartbreak into fire and silence into thunder. You're about to witness how pain forged power and how the world's rejection gave birth to a legend. Sit back as we dive into the powerful true story of Beatrice, the woman destiny refused to break.
You're about to hear a story that carries the heart of Africa. Subscribe to African Folktales by MaC-Anison TV, where every week we share rarest African folktales you won't find anywhere else. Your subscription is the fuel that inspires us to bring you the very best of our storytelling heritage. They say, when the sun burns the hardest, it is preparing to set gently on a weary soul. And that day, under the merciless Lagos sun, the story of Beatrice, a woman forged in pain, tested by fire, and crowned by destiny, began. Dust swirled in the air like restless spirits as the cries of the foreman cut through the heat. Foreman, shouting, "Madam, hurry up now! Bring the blocks here!" The echo of his command blended with the clang of iron and the roar of cement mixers. Beatrice, a young, dark-skinned African woman, walked barefoot on the rough gravel of a construction site. Her skin glistened with sweat, her steps heavy but steady. She balanced a block on her head with quiet grace, the kind of grace born only from suffering and endurance. Her tattered gown, torn at the edges, clung to her body like an unwanted reminder of her struggles. Yet beneath that rough exterior beat a heart stronger than steel. Life had stripped her of comfort, but not of courage. They say, a tree does not fall because the wind blows. It falls when its roots give up. And Beatrice's roots, her will to survive, ran deep. Every day she arrived before dawn, before the men stirred, before the first rooster's cry. She carried blocks from one end of the site to another, working until her hands blistered and her back ached. The men pitied her. They often whispered behind her back. Worker 1, "Ah, this woman gets strong spirit, oh." Carrying blocks with that belly? Worker 2, shaking head. Life they teach her lessons. But still, it's too much for one woman. Yet Beatrice never answered them. She just smiled faintly and lifted another block. That afternoon, the heat was unbearable, the kind that made the air shimmer. Then came Kelly, a beautiful, chocolate-skinned lady dressed in bright Ankara. Her presence was like a sudden breeze through the dust. Kelly, worried, "Ah, Beatrice, I've told you to stop carrying these blocks. Look at you, heavily pregnant, yet you're working under this hot sun. This job isn't good for you or your baby." Beatrice dropped the block on the ground and wiped her brow. Her eyes carried stories of sleepless nights and silent prayers. Beatrice, calm but weary, "Kelly, what do you want me to do? I don't have anybody. Nobody's ready to help me. That's why I do what I must, for myself and for this child." Kelly sighed deeply, her eyes softening with empathy. Kelly, "You don't have to worry anymore, Beatrice." "I have good news for you, Beatrice," hope flickering. "Please, Kelly, tell me. What is it?" Kelly grinned, her eyes shining with excitement. Kelly, "Remember that your crypto stuff, the one you were always doing?" Beatrice, "Your cryptocurrency has gone up. You're now a millionaire." Beatrice froze, her lips trembling as though her mind refused to accept it. Beatrice, shocked, "Kelly, what are you saying?" Kelly, laughing joyfully, "Yes, I mean it. You need to check it now. I remember mocking you then, but girl, you've hit it big. One of your coins is now worth over 1 billion naira."
The words hit Beatrice like a thunderbolt. She covered her mouth with trembling hands, her knees weakening beneath her. Beatrice, voice breaking. "1 billion? Oh my God. Kelly, this is good news. Oh my God." She fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. But these were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of joy, tears of deliverance. For years, she had carried blocks of pain, but now destiny had lifted the weight from her shoulders. The workers gathered, astonished. They had never seen Beatrice cry this way. Her voice trembled as she looked up to the sky. Beatrice, praying softly, "God, you remembered me. You remembered me." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of wet cement and the echoes of laughter. For once, the sun didn't seem so cruel. It now shone like a crown upon her head. The same sun that once burned her became the light that blessed her. Kelly knelt beside her, tears streaming too. Kelly. "You see, Beatrice? The world may turn its back, but heaven never forgets a woman who works with clean hands. Indeed, the river may forget its source, but the source never forgets the river." And that day, heaven remembered Beatrice, the woman who carried blocks under the sun so that her unborn child would never have to. Beatrice rose to her feet, wiping her tears, her belly rising like a promise beneath her dress. The world around her had not changed. The noise, the heat, the dust. But inside her, a storm of pain had turned into a rainbow of hope. They say, no matter how long the night, the day will surely break. And when it breaks, it comes not with noise, but with grace. They say, when the heart that once fed you becomes the hand that strikes you, wisdom is born through pain. And that night, under the soft hum of a flickering bulb in her old apartment, Beatrice sat quietly, her shadow stretching across cracked walls that had once heard her laughter. The rain whispered against the rusted roof, like heaven mourning with her. Her mind wandered back to the days of plenty, when she and David were the envy of many. Together they built empires brick by brick. Together, they built dreams from nothing but love and faith. They had promised each other forever, for better or for worse. But life, as it often does, tested that promise. Beatrice sat on the edge of her bed, her palms clasped. The air was heavy, thick with memory. Beatrice, whispering to herself, "David, how did we get here?" She remembered the pressure, David's parents, their endless whispers. "Remarry," they said. "She cannot bear you a child." They blamed her womb, never suspecting the truth, that the fault lay not with her, but with David. Each word they spoke dug into her heart like thorns. She endured it silently, because love, they say, is patient even when patience burns. Then came the storm. When David changed, the warmth in his eyes turned to cold suspicion. He accused her of sleeping with other men, of chasing strange gods just to have a child. That fateful day, the sky wept with her. Rain poured mercilessly as David flung open the door and shouted, David, furious, "Pack your things, Beatrice. Leave my house. You're nothing but a liar." She stood in the doorway, soaked to the skin, her tears blending with the rain. In her trembling hands was a small bag, her whole life reduced to nothing but memories. The thunder roared as though the heavens protested her suffering. She had no place to go, no family willing to take her in. But still, she hoped. She called David again and again. Days turned into weeks, and still, silence. His phone never rang back. His silence spoke louder than words, killing her a little more each day. Then, one morning, a knock on the door. A man in a suit, expressionless, handed her an envelope. Divorce papers. Cold, official, final. That was how love died, not with shouting, but with ink on paper. Every night after that, Beatrice cried until sleep carried her away. But as the elders say, tears do not drown a woman destined to rise. And so, in that same small apartment where her heart broke, something miraculous happened. Her tears became seeds, and from them grew strength. Years had passed, and now came a day when she least expected it. Joy came like morning sunlight through cracked blinds. Her investment had blossomed. Her crypto soared. Wealth, unplanned, divine, found her. She wept again, but this time they were tears of joy. Now, she could finally feed herself. She could protect the life growing inside her. Her unborn child, the same one David never knew existed. She dialed his number, smiling through her tears, ready to share the good news. Beatrice, softly, "David, you're going to be a father." But the call never connected. He never picked up. And then one day, his number vanished completely, blocked, gone, erased. He thought she was calling to beg. He never knew she was calling to bless. With a heavy heart, Beatrice looked out her window and whispered to the night, "Beatrice, never again. I will never walk that path again." And that night, beneath the dim glow of her lamp, Beatrice was reborn. Not as David's wife, but as a woman who had walked through the fire and came out shining. For the ancestors say, gold fears no fire. It only shines brighter after the burning. They say, the stone that the builder rejected shall become the cornerstone. Fate, in its quiet patience, had been watching Beatrice. Once broken by betrayal, now rebuilt by grace. The woman who once lifted blocks beneath the cruel African sun now lifted empires with the strength of her will. Now she had everything she needed: money, peace, and her child. The nights she once cried herself to sleep had turned into nights of silent gratitude. The woman who once begged for love now commanded boardrooms and nations. Her mornings began not with struggle, but with serenity. Golden rays filtered through silk curtains, brushing her glowing skin as her child's laughter echoed down the marble hallway. And often, when she stood before her mirror, dressed in elegance that power could not hide, she would whisper to herself, "What's the essence of marrying again? A man will come, we'll build an empire together, and in the end, he'll still throw me away. No, I will live for my children. They are my world now." Beatrice was now a billionaire, a name that rolled off tongues with reverence. From the woman who once carried bricks in dust-stained clothes, she had risen to become the CEO of the fastest-growing manufacturing company in the nation. Her fleet of cars gleamed like liquid silver beneath the sun. Her mansion stood like a fortress of triumph. Across states, her factories roared with life, symbols of what a determined woman could become when pain fuels purpose. The world admired her. Her story became a sermon, a tale of resilience, of how a woman, once forsaken, could stand taller than the men who broke her. Greater than, when a woman weeps, the elders say, even the heavens take note, for her tears water the roots of her destiny. Somewhere in the same country, David, the man who once called her worthless, sat in his office, reading about the mysterious CEO whose company now dominated every industry. He was impressed, even envious, yet he never imagined it was Beatrice. Curiosity turned into pride that disguised his guilt. So one day, with arrogance in his chest and deceit on his tongue, he decided to call her, not to reconnect, but to wound old scars. David wanted to humiliate her, to remind her of her supposed failure. His wedding was near, and his cruel heart desired spectacle. He picked up his phone and dialed her number. For 7 days, the line rang unanswered, until finally, Beatrice picked up.
David's voice slithered through the receiver. Greater than, "Hello, Beatrice, how are you doing? It's been such a long time. How's life treating you?" He chuckled mockingly, pretending to care. Beatrice paused, her breath calm, her soul silent. She remembered every night she had cried because of this same voice. But this time, she refused to give him that power. "I'm good, David," she replied softly, yet firmly. "It's really been a long time. Why are you calling me today?" David smirked. "Well, I just called to officially invite you to my wedding. It's in 2 weeks. I'd really love to see you there. I'll send you the venue. See you soon." And before she could respond, the line went dead. Beatrice slowly lowered the phone, her reflection staring back from the glass table, powerful, unshaken, radiant. A slow smile curved her lips. "He still thinks I'm the same woman he left behind," she whispered. Outside, her convoy engines roared to life, a queen's chariot ready to move. The battle of pride and destiny had just begun. And this time, the rejected stone was coming to the wedding. They say when the wind changes direction, even the mighty palm bends to its rhythm. Once upon a time, Beatrice had bent, broken even, but never uprooted. Now, the same woman who once wept beneath the weight of betrayal walked as one who owned the earth beneath her feet. Her twin sons had grown into fine, handsome boys, bright eyes glistening with the light of promise. At 7 years old, they already carried the quiet dignity of kings in the making. Anyone who saw them couldn't help but stare, not merely because of their looks, but because of the calm confidence that radiated from within. Beatrice adored them deeply. To her, they were her crown jewels, proof that pain can birth purpose. She taught them not from books, but from scars. "Never repay good with evil," she would say softly as she tucked them into bed. "And never forget those who stood by you when the world turned its back." Her words sank deep into their tender hearts, shaping them into young gentlemen the world would one day admire. Then came the day the world and fate decided to test her peace. The day David, the man who once abandoned her, was to wed again. His name filled the air that week like a rumor, carried from one gossiping tongue to another. His wedding was to be the talk of the century, luxury dripping from every corner, pride wrapped in every invitation. The venue was a paradise of gold and silver. Chandeliers sparkled like stars, soft music floated through the air, and the bride shimmered in a gown that looked as though the heavens had spun it themselves. Cameras flashed, laughter filled the hall, and David stood tall at the altar, chest puffed with arrogance. He believed this day crowned his triumph. But as the drums of celebration beat louder, destiny prepared its own rhythm. The grand doors swung open, the music dimmed, heads turned. There, walking through the entrance, were 2 little boys dressed in matching black tuxedos, their steps slow, deliberate, graceful. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Who are they?" someone whispered. Another voice said, "They look so familiar." And then, she appeared. Beatrice, like dawn breaking after a long, starless night. Her entrance silenced the entire hall. Each step echoed with power. She was wrapped in a gown of gold silk that kissed the floor as she moved. Her diamond necklace caught the chandelier's light, scattering brilliance across the walls. Her dark skin gleamed with radiance, a shade that spoke of royalty and resilience. Behind her, bodyguards dressed in black flanked her path, their presence adding weight to her aura. The air itself seemed to bow as she passed. David froze. His lips parted, but no words came out. He whispered to himself, trembling, This is Beatrice." How? Who are those boys? The truth stared him in the face. His sons.
the very boys he had never cared to know. Their eyes mirrored his own, but their hearts mirrored hers, strong, proud, unbroken. Beatrice said nothing. She didn't need to. Her presence alone spoke volumes. She smiled faintly, a smile that carried forgiveness wrapped in triumph. The ceremony went on, but David's heart was no longer there. Each vow he spoke felt heavy with regret. Each cheer from the crowd sounded like mockery in his ears. The woman he thought he had destroyed now stood beyond his reach, higher, stronger, untouchable. When it all ended, Beatrice turned and walked out, her sons on either side like princes escorting their queen. Her convoy of gleaming cars waited outside, a fleet of success that stretched like a royal parade. David stood at the entrance, watching silently as her limousine door closed. The reflection of her diamonds danced on his face, a cruel reminder of what he lost. That day, the humiliation he had planned for Beatrice became his own curse. For the ancestors say, the one who digs a pit for another often falls into it first. And as Beatrice's car disappeared into the golden horizon, David realized something no wealth could ever buy. He had lost not a woman, but a destiny. They say, when a man forgets the woman who built him, the gods remind him through the one who will break him. The wind of destiny does not blow without reason. It carries the scent of justice. And so began the slow unraveling of David's once proud empire, thread by thread, choice by choice. After a few months, murmurs began to rise in David's home like smoke from unseen fire. His family, proud, expectant, restless, called almost every week. David, how far? Any news yet? His mother's voice would echo through the phone, thick with both hope and pressure. Each time, David forced a tired smile. Not yet, Mama. Soon, by God's grace. But the grace he spoke of was already preparing to test his heart. Vanessa's soft laughter and beauty masked a storm of deceit. Every morning she'd wear her expensive perfumes and flowy silk gowns, visiting hospitals and churches, her face painted with tears that were more performance than pain. Doctors ran tests, priests offered prayers, prophets gave vague reassurances. Children will come at the right time. But what David didn't know was that the problem wasn't the heavens refusing. It was betrayal breathing beneath his roof. Unknown to him, Vanessa had a secret lover, a man whose shadow had followed her long before the wedding bells rang. Their love was forbidden, fiery, and cruel. Together, they had hatched a plan to milk David of his wealth and destroy him from within. To the world, Vanessa was perfection, a wife who smiled sweetly beside her husband at every event, her hands resting tenderly on his arm. But when night fell, her true voice whispered in the dark to another man, her laughter low, her tone sultry. Then one morning, Vanessa emerged from the bedroom, her eyes glistening with fake joy. "David," she said, voice trembling in pretend awe, I think I'm pregnant." David froze, then fell to his knees, eyes wet. "Thank you, God. You've remembered me." He kissed her hands, her feet, overwhelmed with relief. His mother screamed through the phone when she heard, "My son, finally. Our lineage continues." But little did David know that joy was borrowed, and that child was not his blood. When the time came for delivery, Vanessa gave birth to a premature baby boy. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and prayer. Machines beeped, nurses whispered. David sat beside her, clutching her hand, his heart full of gratitude. He fasted, prayed, and spent all he had to keep both mother and child alive. But destiny does not hide forever. A lie may walk for years, the elders say, but truth runs faster. The child bore no mark of David, neither his dark eyes nor his frame. Nurses exchanged looks. Whispers filled corridors. Soon even David's mother began to ask questions. But this wasn't just a story of deceit. It was a mirror of karma. The same man who once cast out the woman who built him was now trapped in the arms of the one who would unbuild him. Far away, in a quiet mansion that overlooked the city lights, Beatrice sat with her twin sons. The glow from a single lamp painted her face in warmth and sorrow. She took a deep breath. "My sons," she began softly, "you must know your story." The boys looked up at her, curious and calm. She continued, her voice steady but emotional. "Your father was once a good man who lost his way. But from his mistakes we will learn. We do not hate. We heal." Her sons nodded slowly, absorbing her words like sacred truth. "Mom," one of them asked gently, "will we ever see him?" Beatrice smiled faintly, eyes shimmering. "When the time is right," she said, "life will bring that moment to pass." The truth always finds its way home. Her words floated into the night, a mother's prophecy, waiting to be fulfilled. 2 years later, David's fortune began to sink like a ship abandoned by its captain. His businesses faltered. His partners withdrew. The wealth he once flaunted disappeared like mist in morning light. Vanessa, no longer the sweet wife, turned reckless, throwing parties, buying jewelry, spending money like tomorrow didn't exist. And when David tried to caution her, she'd point to their sick child. The boy she bore, the son of Betrayal, was born mentally and physically challenged. He could neither walk nor talk properly. Yet Vanessa used him as her weapon, demanding more money, more sympathy, more power. "David, if you love this child, you'll do as I say," she would shout, crocodile tears glistening. David, exhausted and broken, began to question fate itself. His mother's eyes darkened with suspicion. "This child, he doesn't look like our blood," she whispered one night. But David stayed silent. Guilt had chained his voice. Meanwhile, Vanessa whispered to her secret lover again, plotting the final blow. Her greed had no limits. Her plan was clear. Divorce David, take 80% of his property, and claim she needed it for the child's care. But as the ancestors say, he who digs a pit for another must prepare his own grave beside it. And soon, Vanessa's own web of deceit would catch her. For truth, though buried, never dies. It simply waits for the right time to rise. They say in the land of men, the footsteps you leave behind will someday find their way back to your door. David once stood as a king in his world, a man who built an empire beside a woman who loved him deeply. But the gods of time are patient. When a man forgets where his blessings began, the earth has a way of humbling him. And so, fate began its slow, merciless dance. The empire David and Beatrice had built together, with sweat, faith, and sleepless nights, began to crumble like dry clay in a storm. The once bustling offices, filled with laughter and ambition, now echoed with silence. Stacks of unpaid invoices covered his desk like tombstones marking the death of a dream. David stood by the window one morning, staring blankly at the city skyline. Once, that view had inspired pride. Now it only reflected failure. His phone rang endlessly. Calls from creditors, disappointed investors, and employees demanding their pay. But David had nothing left to give. One by one, his workers left. "Boss, I'm sorry," one whispered before walking away, head bowed. Soon after, investors withdrew their money. "David," they said coldly, "we can't take this risk anymore." The man who was once the pride of the business world became a name people avoided. His empire, once towering, now lay in ruins. And while David sank in despair, Vanessa, his wife, sat in their luxurious living room, flipping through documents with an icy smile. Her plan was finally complete. The divorce papers were ready, boldly declaring that David was to surrender 80% of everything he owned, his shares, properties, and assets, to her and the boy he thought was his son. That evening, Vanessa's mask fell away. The sweetness was gone. She stood before David, her tone sharp as a blade. "You're not a man," she spat. "Look at your mates. They're building empires while you're losing everything. You can't even take care of your family." David's lips trembled. His eyes were heavy with shame and disbelief. "Vanessa, you don't mean that." "Oh, I mean every word," she snapped. "I'm done pretending." "Sign these papers, David. I want a divorce. If you refuse, I'll take our son away and you'll never see us again." Her words struck him like thunder. David sank to his knees, voice shaking, eyes glistening with tears. "Please, Vanessa. Don't do this. I can fix it. I just need time." But she turned away, unmoved, a queen walking away from her conquered king. The silence that followed was suffocating. Out of fear, guilt, and ignorance, David signed. His trembling hand sealed his own downfall. The next morning he sat in the lawyer's office, unaware that his fate had already been written in ink. "Mr. David," the lawyer said calmly, "by signing those papers, you've transferred 80% of your assets to Mrs. Vanessa and your son. You now own nothing." For a long moment, David said nothing. His world spun, his breath shortened, his empire, his pride, his legacy, all gone in one signature. The lawyer's voice faded into the background as David's mind replayed his life in fragments. The day he left Beatrice, the tears she shed, the vows he broke, the empire they built together with love and patience. And then, a cold truth settled in his heart. The ancestors say, when a man digs a pit for another, he must remember that time and destiny will one day bring him to its edge. David had betrayed love for vanity, and now vanity had betrayed him in return. He walked out of that office a broken man. No company, no wife, no child, and no peace. The same knife he once used to wound Beatrice had been turned upon him. And as he stood alone under the heavy rain that evening, the heavens seemed to whisper, "Nothing stays hidden forever under the sun." They say when a man plants seeds of betrayal, time will water them with regret. The elders also say, he who forgets the woman who molded his beginning will one day kneel before the lessons of fate. And so it came to pass that David's own deeds returned to him like a storm at sea. The night was heavy, draped in sorrow and silence. David sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, once filled with laughter, now echoing with emptiness. His empire was gone, his wealth scattered like ashes, and the woman he had chosen over true love had vanished with everything. Phone in hand, David dialed Vanessa's number again and again. Each ring was like a heartbeat of desperation. "Please, Vanessa," he whispered, voice trembling. "Let me at least see my son, please." But when she finally answered, her tone was sharp as a blade, cold, final, merciless. Vanessa's voice cut through the quiet like lightning splitting the sky. "David," she said, "you were just a means to an end. The boy isn't yours. He belongs to my lover. It was all part of the plan, from the very beginning." Silence. David froze. His breath caught in his throat. The world seemed to tilt beneath him. Every word hit him like thunder against rock. His hands shook as the phone slipped from his grip. In that moment, the truth came crashing down like a flood. He had lost everything. His wife, his company, his wealth, his peace of mind, all gone. And the bitterest part? There was no one to blame but himself. He sank to the floor, tears streaming freely down his face. Memories of Beatrice, the woman who once stood beside him when he was nothing, filled his mind like a haunting melody. In the quiet of his shame, he reached for his phone again. His hands trembled as he scrolled through his contacts until he found her name. Beatrice. He hesitated for a long moment, afraid of what she might say, yet desperate to hear her voice. Finally, he pressed call. After several rings, a calm, confident voice answered. "Hello, David." Her tone was steady. Not angry, not cold, just composed. "Beatrice," David's voice cracked. "Please, I need to see you. I've made terrible mistakes. Please give me a chance to speak to you." For a moment, there was silence on the other end. Beatrice closed her eyes, the memories of heartbreak flashing through her mind. The day he left her, the nights she cried, the days she worked alone to raise her twin sons. At first, she wanted to hang up, but something deep within, wisdom, perhaps grace, told her it was time to face the past. For her son's sake, she agreed to meet. They chose a quiet eatery in town. When Beatrice arrived, she came in gracefully, dressed in soft Ankara, her head held high, her twin boys walking beside her. Her aura was peace itself. David rose immediately when he saw her. The sight of her, stronger, radiant, untouchable, broke him inside. His voice shook as he spoke. "Beatrice," he said, barely able to hold his tears. "I'm so sorry. I ruined everything. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. Please forgive me." Beatrice said nothing for a while. Her eyes searched his, not for lies, but for truth. Her sons watched quietly, sensing the weight of the moment. Finally, she sighed and said softly, "David, the boys you see here, they're your sons. I tried to tell you many times, but you never gave me the chance. You blocked me, ignored my calls, left me to struggle alone. But God had other plans. He turned my pain into purpose." The words hit David harder than any blow. He fell to his knees right there, crying without shame. "Beatrice, please, give me another chance. Let's start over. Let me make things right." Beatrice looked down at him, not with anger, but with wisdom. Her voice was calm, yet final. "David, I forgave you a long time ago, but I'm no longer the woman I used to be. I can't go back. You can be a father to your sons, love them, support them. But as for me, I've found peace. I'm not ready to remarry." David bowed his head. The realization sank deep. Some mistakes can only be healed, not undone. And so time passed. With Beatrice's help and guidance, David began to rebuild. Slowly, with humility, he rose again. But Beatrice never returned as his wife, only as the mother of his children and the reminder of what pride had cost him. The elders say, "Do not despise the one who shared your tears when the sun refused to shine. Never despise the hand that lifted you when you had nothing. Because when the wheel of life turns, you may find yourself begging that same hand for forgiveness." And under the quiet African sky, David learned the hard way that love betrayed will always return to demand its due. Dear viewers, this story reminds us that rejection is not the end. It's often the beginning of a greater destiny. Beatrice's pain was the fire that shaped her strength, and her tears watered the roots of her success. Never look down on someone because of where they are today. The woman carrying bricks under the sun might be the same woman signing paychecks tomorrow. What are your thoughts on Beatrice's incredible journey from pain to power? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more inspiring African stories. If this touched your heart, like and share it with someone who needs a reminder that every downfall can rise again as destiny's miracle.